Freestyle Friday. Freestyle Friday is where we get to talk about all kinds of things. Friday night news dump, all that good stuff, everything that's coming out. And we're doing it all on the fly, unscripted. Well, at least after I go over some of my finer points of the day. We're talking COVID, moving the election date, Russia again, and certain elections. Let's get it.
Frosty, free. Let the attack begin.
What up? We're back. Waiting to see if we can get some folks here in the chat. It's Freestyle Friday. You're here with your host, DJ Frosty Freeze. Glad to have you. Glad to bring you in. We got a lot to talk about today. We got all kinds of crazy stuff going on. Just looking over here to see what's going on in the chat. We're on YouTube. You can catch us at YouTube, Facebook. Be sure to like all those pages and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you know exactly when we're on. Let's move around here. Like I said, today's Freestyle Friday. We're not going to get into any long news scripts. We're just going to run through the things, and I want to hear what you guys have to say. So we'll give you some time to jump in here. Looking at all the news stuff that's coming out, Friday night news dumps. That's like all the news gods come out on Fridays. So we can have our daily dose of what's happening in the world. And today it seems more like the world is the USA. The world is the USA. That's it. Nothing else out there but that. So what's everybody been up to? I see people are late to the chat today, late to the show. And I'm only going to guess that is simply because it's Friday and they're not social distancing. They're out hanging out at the bars and all that other stuff, right? Yeah. Let me see what's... Hey, there we go. I can see somebody here. I just wanted to check and see if it was on my chat, but I see you. SD Ketty, I see you. I appreciate you coming in. Got a lot to talk about. Be sure to chat. It's Freestyle Friday. This is where you guys get to share your views in the chat, and I get to talk about them, along with some of the things that we got going on today. Talking about the former KKK leader, David Duke, the Grand Dragon from 1974 and 1978. I say that loosely because we all know what he's all about. But I always have to put that in there. He was a Grand Dragon from 1974 and 1978. And David Duke likes to talk about how he's no longer in the KKK. So, that is what it is, I guess. So, David Duke, prominent voice on Twitter, gets permanently banned from Twitter for breaking the hate speech rules. No surprise there. I'm just wondering if Tucker Carlson is still on Twitter, though. Well, maybe he is, yeah. Tucker Carlson's still on Twitter. So apparently maybe David Duke's people got a place to go. They can go hang out over there. And speaking of the KKK, Donald Trump says he wants to postpone the elections in November. Hong Kong's leader did just that, postponing it for a year, their elections. And get this, and I'm serious, you can't even make this stuff up, man. Well, unless, of course, you're in the Trump administration, which they seem to be very good at, and they did. According to White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany, She says, we condemn the Hong Kong government's decision to postpone for 1 year its legislative council elections and to disqualify opposition candidates. Basically, it's good for Trump, but Hong Kong should be condemned for even suggesting such measures, right? Because isn't this what Trump was trying to do? I mean, he wants to postpone the elections and stuff, right? That's what his gig is. So meanwhile, the Trump administration is getting pushback on this idea by Republicans and other folks, as he should be. But I don't want you folks to be fooled by that. They're not really worried about whether Trump decides to move elections or anything like that. Those Republicans in Congress and others in Congress know he can't do it, legally anyway. But they're not pushing back because of the legality of it. They have more cynical plans in place, and quite frankly, it doesn't align with the Russian with the Russian plan this time around. So they're not gonna. He's not. Trump went off the script on that one, and the Russians ain't gonna be having that idea. Apparently, we'll talk about the Russians in a minute, but the administration has the U.S. Postal Service learning some new and innovative tactics, new ways of delivering the mail, or delaying the delivery of the mail, cutting down post offices, taking them out. So they're getting pretty creative with this stuff, this voter suppression and all that kind of thing that's going on. They're taking out post offices now because they know the majority of the people want to vote by mail. So that whole move the election stuff didn't fit with the plan. Didn't fit with the Russian plan, didn't fit with the Chinese plan. And they had to improvise. They had to come up with new ways, right? So last midterm election, they decided to move polling booths because we didn't have a pandemic at that time. But now the pandemic kind of threw some things into a whirlwind. So they have to come up with an idea, and that idea is to replace the Postmaster General, put some guy in place that is friendly to Trump and such, and by doing so, they can change the way the mail gets delivered, shut down a couple of post offices, decrease the work-related force, blame it on the pandemic, and somehow make your mail late or not show up at all. Now, they did this in Milwaukee last spring, and it backfired big time. And I said at the time that mail-in voting has always been used by Republicans more than Democrats. Traditionally, it's always been Republicans that used to vote by mail mostly. And which is, it's interesting to me that they would even go this route simply because of that. And I imagine that's why his poll numbers, among other things, are shrinking, because he keeps doing things that just aren't conservative in the traditional sense. So you know what they're really afraid of when it comes to mail-in voting, right? They're afraid because any mail coming from a foreign country can be vetted. Yeah, you heard me right. Every piece of mail that comes in, absentee or otherwise, from a foreign country can be vetted with extreme scrutiny. So it makes sense. They don't want this mail-in voting because it's not in Russians or Putin's plan of attack. He can't do anything about that. The overseas ballots are very well tracked. They're tracked not only by international mail, but U.S. mail, customs, the visas that the people are mailing from, and the addresses from which they're staying at. Oh yeah, they can't track it that way. They can't hide it. I mean, and we're talking about all this this voter fraud by mail, and it just doesn't make sense to me. But I understand it now. When you really look at it, and you look at the ways and how they can do this thing, the mail-in program doesn't fit with their plans. So now they went through a progression. They started with voter ID. Then they started with, they moved on to moving the polling places. They didn't close them yet. They moved them, sometimes miles out of the way in the middle of nowhere where people have no transportation, cannot get to it. They don't have bus routes. They're out in rural sticks. Can't get to the polls that way. And after that got thwarted and they figured that one out, then they decided to start closing up the polling stations and moving them out of the districts again. And then decided to go a little more strict on the voter ID, and then how you could do it. And then they said, okay, well, there's states that are voting by mail. That seems to work very well. And I give them that. The West Coast is a little more lax than other states, but they decided to start implementing rules on those. So now when you mail in, some states you got to have 2-3 signatures. The FBI, the CIA, Homeland Security, the goons out in Portland, all of them got to check your mail now before you can get a ballot and turn it in. And then they say, well, you can't mail out the ballot 2 months in advance. You got to do it within 30 days or something like this. There's all kinds of stuff out there. You should look it up. It's crazy. But it's all about one thing. They can't win without stopping you from voting. And this is why you have to get out there. Apparently 3 million votes wasn't enough last time, so you got to get out there. You got to flood the ballots in the polling stations in the mail. And I'm telling you, get the mail. If you got a mail-in ballot or an absentee ballot, get that thing in the mail a month early. You know where you're voting presidentially anyway. Get it out there early. Don't give them a chance to throw your votes out. Now, they did this in Milwaukee back in the last or the state elections here this last spring when COVID was first introduced into the country, and it was spreading like crazy. And they wanted, you guys all know it. It made the national news. And, this has all been a Republican operation. Like I'm telling you, like they had these guys literally out here standing in lines. They only had one polling station open. They went all full board. Sign this, sign that, stand in line for 10 hours, 12 hours. And then we're only going to open up one place to go to. We can't find any poll workers, this, that, and the third. And thank God it wasn't a significant amount of people that got the coronavirus at that time. But it was a tactic. And this thing, they fought this thing. The governor tried to set some things up and try to make it safer for people and extend it out and all this kind of thing. But no, they couldn't have that. They had to take this to the state Supreme Court, which, by the way, was on the ballot at that time. And as I said before, Republicans tend to vote more by mail-in, which they did at that time. And the post office somehow lost a whole bunch of ballots. Now, I'm going to have to assume in the areas that these ballots were lost tended to be Republican areas, or heavily Republican in that respect. And there was a Supreme Court seat, a state Supreme Court seat up, Jill Karofsky, liberal justice or judge, and she won. Which, by the way, she takes her seat on the 1st of August here coming up. So you can kind of see where this is going and how this thing is playing out. But now I just found out today that we got some other things going on. They're doing a statewide mandate on masks, and we're going to talk about masks a little bit later. But state mandatory masks is the new thing, and Republicans are up in arms all over it today. They're planning on taking this as far as they can go. They're already talking about trying to take some type of legal action. So we can expect this to go there. But now we'll have a new liberal justice on there, and we'll see where that goes at that point. So just so you know, this is an old and, to be quite honest, a very effective way to secure the vote. Mail-in balloting is secure. No matter how much they bark at you about voter fraud by mail and all this kind of stuff, there's no evidence to suggest that. And even if there was voter fraud, it would be so noticeable in that method that you'd be able to stop it the next day. You'd be able to, well, you wouldn't be able to stop it, but you'd be able to figure it out by the next day. And as I said, this is an old it's an old way of voting, but it's an effective way, especially now during this pandemic. It's even more so important to do it this way. But it'll secure the vote. It really will. And that's why they're pulling all this stuff with these post offices and all this kind of thing. And you got to think, because paper ballots, they can be tracked and the numbers cannot be skewed and there's no encrypted database that somebody can breach, some hacker or something like that. They can't modify electronically the numbers and the exit polling numbers, and they can't adjust the vote totals by hacking into voter machines that happen to be mostly made in China, and also the Trump family seems to have patents on those very same machines. So it's interesting to see how up in arms they are about this mail-in voting. But I'm not surprised by that. They can't do anything about the paper ballots, and they can't hide the paper ballots. They can't destroy the paper ballots, not without purpose. So what better way to help your chances by closing the post offices, reducing the staff, and slowing the processing down so that what happened in Milwaukee can happen nationwide. So they want to be able to control what happens to the mail this time, whereas last time it may have been an accident. And I'll give them that leeway. But I think knowing that most of the voters tend to vote by mail are Republican or conservative in that way. And I have a feeling this is going to backfire again if they try to play these games with the mail. But it looks like that's what they're doing. And they want to do it nationwide. They want to just shut this thing down. But I ask anybody that's watching this tonight, if you have any evidence that voting by mail is an easier way, or that they have committed extensive fraud by voting by mail. And I want to add that all of our intelligence agencies disagree that there's a problem with voting by mail. Then please show it to me, and I will definitely talk about it on one of my shows. By the way, this is episode 6. I'm your host, DJ Frosty Freeze. I want you to like, subscribe, share, do everything. Get on my social platforms and all that other good stuff. And be sure to hit that Cash App. You can hit me at the Cash App with @ DJ Frosty Freeze. It helps us keep this stuff going. And it buys me a coffee every once in a while. And a large soda. So I can stay hydrated while I'm in this Icebox. And I appreciate it. Man, what's going on today? As we talked about in the last little piece here about voter fraud by mail and the lack thereof, Russia is still on the attack and had plenty of practice over the years and figured out how to get the uninformed to bend to their will and vote for their candidate. That's right. Russia wants you to vote for their candidate, and it appears that China's in on it too. You can always tell because Trump will start blasting China away and blaming everything on China. That's how you know China. That's how you know China is in his crosshairs and getting ready to do something that he probably doesn't like. Or maybe they're working against him. as was said, in the 2016 election. They said, hey, if Russia could get away with it, somebody else could get away with it and vote the Democrat in. Who's to say that's not happening, right? So Russia's still on the attack and had plenty of practice over the years and figured out how to get the uninformed to bend to their will and vote for their candidate. That's right. Believe me, Russia wants Trump in there. And they are full-blown, bored, all in on it. And we got a post here, and we got an article here from the Associated Press. But before I get into that, I want to tell you how easy it is to get into these hacking systems that the Russians seem to have perfected, and other countries did it too. North Korea did it too. You remember when that movie came out, The Interview, and all that hacking took place? Don't fool yourself. These poor countries like North Korea and other places like this, they got computer systems too. They're hacking them as well. So they know how to do this stuff. They're not that foolish. But anyway, in breaking news today, we figured it out and how easy it is. A Florida teen, 17-year-old, just a couple weeks ago there was a hack. Twitter was hacked. They hacked Obama's feed. They hacked Biden's feed. They hacked mostly Democrats in the campaign. A 17-year-old kid was caught today in Florida. Yes, it was a teenager. The same teens that know how to work all this technology better than any of us. They hacked in. Got it done. 30 federal and counts related to this hacking. And this is why paper ballots or mail-in ballots are a source of fear for these guys. They don't want no part of it. None. So today in the Associated Press, Russian intelligence services are using a trio of English language websites to spread disinformation about the coronavirus pandemic, seeking to exploit a crisis that obviously that America is struggling to contain ahead of the presidential election in November, U.S. officials said on Tuesday. Yep. The GRU, Russian intelligence, hacking the system. Two Russians who have held senior roles in Moscow's military intelligence service, known as the GRU, have been identified as responsible for a disinformation effort meant to reach American and Western audiences. The information had previously been classified, but officials said it had been downgraded so they could more freely discuss it. Officials said they were doing so now to sound the alarm about the particular websites and to expose what they say is a clear link between the sites and Russian intelligence. So they're all over the place, man. They got your attention last time, and they seem to have gotten it now. Among the headlines that caught the attention of U.S. officials were Russia's counter COVID-19 aid to America advances case for detente, which suggested that Russia had given urgent and substantial aid to the U.S. to fight the pandemic, and Beijing believes COVID-19 is a biological weapon. So Russia is spreading all this propaganda, trying to convince you of this whole China virus thing that Trump likes to talk about. And I find it interesting, to say the least, that Trump is hollering China, 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 and China virus and Wuhan virus and all on board for the China virus. I find it interesting that he's talking about China virus and the Russians are spreading all this information over the interwebs about Chinese biological weapons in COVID-19, that it was done deliberately. And even today, this afternoon, Trump is, you can see he's visibly rattled in every interview that he gets into. And he wanted to rip the reporter's head off when he was talking about the COVID-19 virus. And if China wouldn't have done this, if China wouldn't have done that, it's their fault. Everything's their fault. All right, well, let's play with that for a minute. So, it's China's fault that this virus got out, right? What does that do for you now with 155,000 people dead and upwards of 15 million people worldwide? Close, we're pushing on, what, 4 million right now in the U.S.? And then all the disinformation coming out of the White House at the same time. They can't even put the experts out there. Sitting in Congress today, we got this Berman character and Dr. Fauci out there, and Admiral Girard, which actually he left halfway through for some reason. I missed that part. Not sure why he left. You can enlighten me in the chat. But they're out here screaming about all the possibilities of how Trump is going to lose and blaming everything on China. And the Russians are helping them again. I mean, we're not surprised by that. Some of you might be, including some of my most ardent followers and trolls. It's all the same thing. We got Trump yelling about China and blaming China for all this virus, saying it's their fault. They unleashed the Kraken on the world with this COVID-19 stuff. And then you got the Russian hackers jumping in on these websites, basically saying the same thing that I repeat. Beijing, this is Russia now, Beijing believes COVID-19 is a biological weapon. So they're basically, these Russians are sending out this propaganda piece in conjunction with Trump complaining about the Wuhan virus and the China virus, as he calls it. They're doing everything they can. And he's railing against the mail-in vote because guess who can't hack paper ballots? That's right. The Chinese can't hack into the paper ballots, the mail-in ballots, and neither can Russia for that matter. So don't be fooled by this mail-in ballot fraud nonsense. There's no proof to it. There's no evidence of it. But they can hack into digital voting. They can hack into digital media to get the vote in there. They can do all of that stuff. So that's what's going on. That's what's going on. And this disclosure comes as the spread of the disinformation, including by Russia, is an urgent concern heading into November's presidential election as U.S. officials look to avoid a repeat of the 2016 contest. Now, you got to remember, our intelligence agencies here in the U.S. have never denied that Russia was involved with getting Trump elected. In fact, when they were in Helsinki for that summit, Putin admitted his choice was Donald Trump. He wanted Trump to be elected. What's up, Diggy? I see you, man. This is Freestyle Friday. If you're watching, feel free to chat about anything that we're talking about tonight. It's open forum, and we're talking about a lot of topics. I'm going to sit on here for a little while, let you guys get engaged. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, let your friends know where we're at. Holler if you hear me, all that good stuff. Get on YouTube. This is being broadcast on Facebook Live and YouTube. Glad to have you. Be sure to hit the links you see scrolling across the screen. Be sure to hit that donate at that Cash App at $DJ Frosty Freeze. Like, subscribe, and I'm telling you, I see a lot of you coming on these pages. This is episode 6, right? And I see you guys getting engaged into the show, but you guys aren't hitting them like buttons. You're not hitting the subscribe on my YouTube channel. We need you to do that stuff. We got to build this thing up. Uh-oh, the boss is in the room. Anyway, when a Russian troll farm launched a covert social media campaign to divide American public opinion and to favor then-candidate Donald Trump, and they're doing it again, over Democrat opponent Hillary Clinton. That's what they did in 2016, and they're doing it again, this time against Biden. So you got to come out full force this time. The U.S. government's chief counterintelligence executive warned in a rare public statement Friday about Russia's continued use of internet trolls to advance their goals. Speaking of internet trolls, that episode I told you about 2 days ago, yep, it didn't end there. It followed into a whole other post, right? The deflection continued. Not only did it not stop that night after 12 hours of back and forth and letting this person rant, they weren't done yet. They had to jump on a whole other post. And they had to get on that whole other post and continue the effort. That's right. The same people that did it last time are doing it again, and people you and I both know are passing this stuff along while calling you sheep, right? How many times you heard that? They're passing all this disinformation that the Russians are sending, and I warned you guys about this 4 years ago. To pay attention to what you guys are throwing out there, all the memes and all the garbage that you're seeing, right? I'm no stranger to it. These people throw this stuff to me all the time. It's hard work vetting this stuff. That's why you got to hit that Cash App. I got to get paid to look for this. I got to pay these sites, man. I got to find this stuff, right? No, I'll find it anyway. You know me, but I appreciate it. So, you see, yeah, it's, I get this stuff all the time, and I see the memes out there, and these people take it serious, man. I told you. It's like a cult following, man. They just can't help it. They see something that aligns with what they want to believe while calling you the sheep, and they latch on as if it's the gospel. You see the fake OSHA posts, right? We're talking about masking up, and you see the fake OSHA posts out there with no author to any of it. They never have an author in this stuff, and if they do, it's some fake obscure person you never heard of, and it probably came from someplace overseas, kind of like the robocalls you get asking about your insurance and all that kind of stuff, and where you're gonna and if you can send, and it's the IRS, and if you can send us a check right now, we'll take care of your past due taxes. But yeah, you've seen it, the fake OSHA posts about not wearing a mask and how the mask can't protect you and all this other stuff, and how how the OSHA guy, the guy that works for OSHA, you've seen him. And then I know you've seen the post too, where they have the my friend is a nurse, and my friend is a nurse, and they told me that we work here and we don't have to wear this and we don't have to do this, and yeah, we see all that stuff. And then that brings me to the image you see on your screen right now, the same fake Dr. Fauci memes that have been floating around Facebook and elsewhere, that appear to look like they are quoting him, right? They have this quote on there, and I saw this a couple times this week, and I know I see you people, man. I see you posted this stuff, and then I look at the comment sections, and those are really entertaining, right? I enjoy the comment sections because it's amazing to see how many will jump in those comment sections and believe the stuff that they're seeing right here. They believe this stuff, man. I'm not kidding. They believe it. So this isn't, Fauci didn't say any of this stuff, okay? And I'm hard pressed to believe that any doctor would. Like, it just doesn't even make sense. It doesn't even sound professional to begin with. Looks like somebody was just troll farming. Maybe it's a Russian that did it. I don't know. But there's people that believe this stuff, man. I looked at some posts, and some person was going off talking about, I told you. I told you. He you can't believe this guy. Trump was right. He was right. You know, you can't believe him. Nonsense. The guy's been doing it for, who knows, 100 years already. He knows what he's doing. You know, the guy was the leading doctor when it came to AIDS and other infectious diseases. You know, Ebola, SARS. He knows what he's doing. Now all of a sudden, with all of this experience, all of a sudden now we want to try and discredit him. We want to post stuff like this that doesn't even make sense. The same Dr. Fauci means that appear to look like they are quoting him, but sowing dissent among those who want to get back to normal. And I get it. We all want to get back to normal. But you can't force a virus to just disappear. It doesn't happen like that. We got to do this, man. We got to take our part here. As if those of us who research this stuff, right? And that's what gets me. You know, there's people like me that have the time to really look at this stuff. You know, we research, and that's, you know, we write, we research, we do this. Been doing it my whole life. Public speaking is part of the gig, right? You got to do your research. You got to, you know what you're talking about. And if you make a mistake, well, somebody will correct you, right? And then when you get corrected, you gotta acknowledge that you were, you know, that you made the mistake, or at least fix it in some way, which I have no problem doing. But when I see stuff like this, it's reckless, and it's harmful, and it makes people think the opposite of what they should be doing. And that's exactly what Russia has been doing with their plans and their internet troll farms. They've been putting stuff out like this, and you guys are sucking it up, eating it all up and throwing it out there. You have to look into things you're sharing, people. It's dangerous. Many of you see this stuff and it confirms your biases, and you share it because it gives you a feeling of comfort, and only for a moment. It only comforts you for a little while until you get to the next meme, and then that one will take over for a little while, and that one will comfort you. What's up, Randy? I see you, man. Good to see you, buddy. It comforts you because you either haven't experienced it yet, or no one close to you has. And even if they did, at this point, maybe it's a pride thing. Maybe if you have known somebody that's been going through it, and I've known a few. There's an old, recently we had a old friend of the family from when I grew up in our neighborhood who had lost her brother this last week to COVID-19. And even that, when people are dying, they want to throw up stuff that they want to find other ways to not take it for what it means and what it actually is, and tell you things that, well, the numbers are screwed up. And, oh, you can't trust the numbers. Well, at what point can't I mean, you let's be real for a second. You can't have 100% accuracy in the numbers. We all know this, and this is why this argument comes out. And here's why. Unless you are testing 100% of the population every single day, you won't have an accurate number. It's that simple. But you can have an accurate number of deaths related to COVID-19. And here's where they get funny with the numbers. With infections, they can get an accurate account of the infections of those that report to the doctors or call in with the report showing obvious symptoms of COVID-19 and then having it reassured by a test. That can be counted accurately. But the deaths, which is what scares everybody the most, the 155,000 deaths, and it's probably more. What up, Sonny? Those are the numbers, excuse me. Those are the numbers that they like to play with. As if one death isn't enough. As if those 155,000 confirmed deaths due to COVID-19 aren't suffering enough. And that talks to me a little bit more about the whole school issue, and we'll talk about that too tonight. Because we're going to give you a nice long show where you can share your feelings, let me know what's happening. I appreciate you stopping in. Like I said, this is Freestyle Friday. I want you to share your thoughts in the chat. And we'll talk about whatever it is you guys want to talk about after we get done with this little opening here. But think about this 155,000 people that are dead and no longer going to be with their families. I was reminded today that those folks are mothers, grandparents, children. Yeah, they're not immune. Some more disinformation that comes out. They get sick. Everybody's bodies are different. They handle viruses differently. Some more than others. 155,000 mothers, children, grandparents, fathers. What do those kids have to do after they lose a parent from COVID-19? Because they're okay, right? They can survive this thing because they're strong. And they can go sit in school and they can get this virus and beat it. 99.5% or something is what he said. But what about the psychological aspects of that? And yes, it's something to weigh. There's options there. I get it. It's not going to be 100% no matter what way you look at it. But the one thing I do know that's 100% is that those particular families aren't going to be complete anymore. I hear you, Sonny. I was already saying this, long ago, like even at the end of last school year, that I wasn't sending my grandkid to school. No way. Absolutely not. If there was ever a question about harm or sickness or any of that ever coming to my kid, if there was ever a question about that, I was definitely not going to use them as a sacrificial lamb in the prospects to see how well this is going to play out when I know I can homeschool her or I can find the resources to do it. And I know from my upbringing, and my parents came from the South, had a stepfather that came from Europe in the World War II era. Rest their souls. And that's another story. We'll save that for another show. But my parents, on completely opposite sides of the track, but they both came from the deep South and the mid-South, if you will. But they both came from the South, and they didn't play that. You didn't mess with the babies. Just didn't happen. You weren't playing games with your kids. What the hell is going on out here? You telling me we're supposed to be some of the smartest people in the world and we can't figure this out? Nah, we can figure it out. We don't want to figure it out. That's the problem. We don't want to figure it out. It's inconvenient. 155,000 people. How inconvenient do you think it is for their families? What do you think their kids are going to do? How are they going to go to school? So I got to ask the question. Why would you go to a failed, bankrupt real estate agent who doesn't read and can't listen to anyone but himself for more than 5 minutes without getting distracted to give you some kind of medical advice? I don't understand that. I can't figure that out. But hey, we'll listen to this meme. This meme works. Maybe that's it. If we listen to the memes, I guess I can figure it out. I can put two and two together. If we're listening to memes and taking it for its word, then I can understand why you would listen to the plumber to fix your electricity. Woo, man. We're just getting in tonight, folks. I'm DJ Frosty Freeze. It's Freestyle Friday. Hit me in the chat. Let me know what's going on. Let me know what's on your mind. It's open mic. That's what Freestyle Friday is. Chat it up with me. Let me know. And we'll talk about it. Now, don't even get me started on the folks who think the government is going to microchip you with a vaccine inoculation. That one is another one. All hands on deck. I'm serious, folks. If they ain't got you by now, they're going to get you with that microchip inside the vaccine inoculation. Oh, man, where is it? Where is it? No, not that. There it is. The microchip. It's in that vial somewhere. They're going to get you. They're going to get you with the flat earth vaccine that creates a cure for religion. It sterilizes you from religion. All right. Yeah, I'm messing around. You know where that's coming from. If you ain't been watching the news lately, then I suggest you start watching and paying attention. I wasn't gonna go in on Dr. Stella. I wasn't. I thought, oh man, my sister, she's they threw her out there to the wolves, and I thought, man, how they gonna do that? It's typical. They tend to do that, right? But then today, to double down on all the things she's got to cure, man, to double and triple down on the cure that she says is going to cure it all, you just can't. At some point, they got to, these folks got to take responsibility for what they're doing out there, man. I can't be soft about that. I could blame the situation for Pence meeting them, and maybe they're getting stars in their eyes and things like this. Pence meets them, they come outside and they start talking, and all of them doctors were questionable. You got to look some of them up. I mean, one of them on the website that they were on didn't even have it wasn't even in English. I didn't even know what language it was, but it was something, and apparently it was all about the credentials. It was a pediatrician or something. And they always find these doctors that are, somehow they become epidemiologists, and they have these miracle cures, the hydroxychloroquine and all that stuff, and which, there's no the failed bankrupt real estate agent is not a pharmacist. He's not a doctor, but he is invested in that drug. And these folks are trying to cash in and cash out as much as they can before November, because they can see the writing on the wall. Oh yeah, we'll talk about that. Give me 2 seconds there, Sonny. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. There's been some Sonny's asking about the economy if you're listening on YouTube. We're going to get into that in a minute. But I'm going to finish up here with this anti-mask brigade that we got going on out here. And I'll end it like this. For the life of me, I cannot figure out I cannot figure out this need to deny what's right in front of you, what's in your face. It's nuts to me. It's crazy. I just the links that people are going to try and discredit the science, the proof that's right in front of them. And maybe they're in rural areas where they don't have any access to cable or internet or something, And I get that. But are the newspapers that bad to where you can't see what's happening in the rest of the world, to where you don't realize that the United States is the only country at this point that doesn't seem to know how to figure this out? And what's up with Jim Jordan and his hearing this morning? And his lack of decorum with the shirt and tie, looking like the one of the Little Rascals or something. I'm willing to bet the dude's wearing shorts underneath there too. He looks like he belongs in the camp. The guy goes off, says the same stuff. I mean, he says the same thing in every hearing. Talks 100 miles a minute, and then he raises his. What did I do? I don't know. Jim Jordan. I mean, this guy could seriously be in a high school gym talking about ice cream and candy instead of defending the people he has sworn to serve. The guy talks about anything and everything outside of what those hearings are all about. The guy's in like 5 hearings. He's in 5 or 6. The guy's like in 5 different committees or something. The guy's in multiple committees, and he talks about the same thing in each one of those committees. It's always the same. His job, and all I can see when I look at this clown is his job is for one person and one person only, no matter who he sees suffer in the process. He's like the man child, you know, like the man child number 2 next to the tangerine. It's crazy to me. So what's going on current events? Yeah, tell me about it. I hear you, Sonny. Tell me about it, man. This guy, just every single time you see the guy, it's just insane. It's the same thing in every committee. It's as if the committee, I don't even know what committee's on. I don't even know which committee I'm watching when this guy's talking. I could literally just come in late and watch him talking, and I don't know if it's the judiciary. I don't know if it's the Ways and Means. I don't know what it is. And you know, obviously Trump put him there. You know, he's got to go in there and defend the guy. But I have no idea what the deal is with this guy. I have no idea. So what else is going on today? Oh, man, the Portland situation has gotten a little crazy. Apparently, this dude got stabbed. This dude got stabbed last night. Or a couple nights ago. Yeah, he got stabbed a couple nights ago. He's a African American dude, black dude, reporter. I guess he's a conservative of some sort. Was running around in Portland trying to get news, and apparently, what he says is some Antifa guy. I don't know much about that, whether or not the guy that stabbed him was Antifa, but apparently there was some Antifa guy. And Antifa, he goes up behind this Antifa guy, and as he in the middle of this he grabs him from behind aggressively. And apparently the guy had some kind of object. I don't know what it was exactly. According to the guy's name is Duncombe. And apparently he just, kind of got behind this guy, grabbed him around the neck. And what are you following me for? What are you following me for? What's up, Mandy? I see you. Glad you showed up. Be sure to hit that like button. If you're on my YouTube channel, hit the subscribe, the notification bell. And if you like what you're hearing, and even if you don't like it, hit me at that Cash App. A couple dollars goes a long way. I appreciate it. But anyway, this Duncombe, I forget his first name. His last name is Duncombe. He goes up behind this guy. And apparently, he grabs him and says, "What are you following me for?" All aggressive like. And the guy, the supposed or alleged Antifa guy, shanks him. Turns around, shanks him in the back. And it was real. He had to go to a hospital. And Now, here's the thing with this. First of all, no matter what you're doing, if you're media, or if you want to be media, you don't go up and start grabbing people. No matter what it is. And that becomes assault, battery, and all that kind of stuff. And from the videos I've been watching, I mean, there's been some scuffles, but nothing like this. Nothing where anybody that claims to be media. Now, this guy says he's been targeted before. Because he's a conservative, he says. He says he's targeted because he's a conservative. I don't know about any of that. It's just these are his claims. But that he got stabbed simply because he was a conservative, and that they doxed him. They put all his information out while he was at a hotel in the Oregon area, in the Portland area. And he was being followed by this so-called Antifa guy. And he was saying all this stuff on Tucker Carlson's show over at Fox. And it almost sounded as if he was trying to play like this victim card or something. I don't know. But says the person who stabbed him is known as an Antifa member. And whenever they use terms like that, Antifa member, and I'm sure most of us know the anti-fascist movement is not an organization per se. There is no group of people. They have no central office. There is no place to get a hold of these guys, and I'm going to assume they are more like the anonymous group, the anonymous hacker group. They're just a collective of folks that have the same type of ideologies and do things that way. Not sure what's going on with the chat, but for some reason you guys on Facebook aren't getting the chat isn't working for you guys. So I can see you separately on a different device, but for some reason I can't see you on the main device. But that's okay. We'll get through it. So Sonny, you talked about what about the government not having a plan for the economy? And the take a 3-day weekend off. Yeah, I'm assuming you're talking about the Senate and the Senate Republicans and not being able to pass a bill to extend relief to businesses, small businesses, and those who are unemployed. I hear you on that. I think it's BS. I think it's ridiculous. I think that with so many people hurting right now, they need to sit their asses down and sleep in the office if it need be, and take care of these people they say they support. And there's a lot of people hurting out there. I know of people personally that got hit by this, and they don't appreciate it. There's been a plan in place for quite a bit, and I don't think the Democrat plan is too taxing. There may be a couple things in there that they might want to get rid of, but that's part of negotiating, though, isn't it? But to just pack up and leave is kind of disingenuous, if you ask me. Why would you? I mean, it's a spit in the face. It's just an insult. You're paying these people, man. You're paying these people to decide for you how to distribute your money, and then when they do decide, they decided to give all this money to the rich folks, to the big corporations, back, these big tax breaks and all this stuff. You remember that? The big tax break that was supposed to be for the middle class, and all they decided to give you was a free value meal at the end of your check. You remember that? Yeah, I remember it well. Well, that didn't work out so well because it didn't change the landscape. All these big businesses were supposed to get all this tax break, and they were supposed to hire folks, and everything was supposed to be gravy. But now we're in this situation where you didn't get the big breaks in your taxes. You got the value meal at the back of your check. Roughly, the average was like $8 or something. And then Then they try to make excuses, and I laughed at a lot of people that used to say, well, if you just saved your money and if you did this and you did that, this, that, and the third, which is easy for some folks to do, but not many. Not in this day and age where both the breadwinner and the partner have to work, and the kids have to, and you got to pay for daycare and you got to pay for all this extra stuff. Those tax breaks don't do much for you, right? They did a whole lot for these big businesses, though. And here we are again, grappling on whether or not you should get paid. While your unemployment runs out, they decide to take the weekend off, a 3-day weekend. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. And to be able to, how can you even go home? Like I'm going to assume most of these folks aren't even going home. They're probably hiding out somewhere. Maybe probably in Washington. And you're sitting here and your $600 just got erased. So you probably won't see that in this next check. There's no mandate on stopping evictions, so I'm sure some landlords are going to jump on that just because. I've never seen anything like this, where folks have been so divided to where they want to see the destruction of others, whether it be through COVID-19 and not masking up, whether it be through this situation here with the Senate taking off early. I'm not getting that. I don't understand that. And then you throw the pandemic on top of it. It's not as if these people can, decided they don't want to work all of a sudden. And then you got folks hollering they don't want to give them so much money because then it'll incentivize them not to go back to work, which I think is, well, it could be true for some people, but you got to remember, they're not out of work by choice. They didn't decide that they didn't want to work and they just wanted to collect unemployment. That wasn't the decision they made. And it's not going to last forever either. So they give them a little bit of incentive to go out, spend some money, and hopefully they can save it so that when this thing does end, they can pay off their bills. Now, some folks are going to lose their, I'm assuming that the Republicans, by not passing this, are going to delay the relief that folks are getting for their energy, their lights, their car notes, their insurance payments, or whatever that may be. It's not good. You're paying them to do a job, and they do this way too often. And it's not just Republicans that do it either. But in this case, and some of the most, this is just unusual. But how do you take a vacation when 155,000 people have died? And I'm sure those families are going to need relief, right? They died. They need relief. The people that are out of work, and make no mistake about it, the people that are getting this unemployment and this extra money, they were people that worked. It ain't like people that were already sitting on welfare and that weren't doing anything were the ones getting the $600. They were getting a stimulus check, which they should. I think everybody should get the stimulus. It helps. It helps to build the economy while we're in such a rut. It worked in the last package, in the CARES Act. It worked. It kept the economy afloat. I know the stock market didn't lose anything. And yes, I know the stock market and the economy are two separate things. I'm just pointing it out. The rich folks didn't have a problem at all. Those who own all those stocks, no issues whatsoever. So that kind of calls into question of what's really going on here as well. I knew a presidential candidate that wanted to put a stop to all this craziness. But that's we'll share that after November. And that reminds me, November is coming up. It's right around the corner. If you don't like the way people take vacations on your money while you're sitting at home watching people getting sick, numbers climbing, out of work, businesses failing, businesses not coming back, probably won't ever come back. You need to realize why you're in this situation. This whole do nothing Democrat narrative just doesn't fly with me. 300 bills sitting on a desk, and you were worried about 200 judges, lifetime appointments, Supreme Court. But we never got nothing done on infrastructure. I remember that was a campaign promise that never came true. Yep, it's all hands on deck. All hands on deck. Mayors in Democrat cities. Mayors in Democratic cities, yep. We talked the other day about the federal police coming into your city and how they decided to not want to secure the DNC, and these federal police are going to come in and squash the protests, because for some reason your particular First Amendment rights don't matter, but others do. So I find that interesting. But mayors, they're up in arms. Mayors are up in arms. Governors don't want it, particularly in Democratic controlled state houses and cities across the country. They don't want it. And I agree. I don't think a national police force needs to be anywhere near your cities for anything that should be handled locally. I don't think, and that's the whole point though, isn't it? Constitution was designed around states' autonomy. Semi-autonomy anyway. And I think that that's a problem. And I think when we start setting that precedent of letting federal police run our streets, we're going to have bigger problems, because that's when you're on the threshold of actual tyranny. And I've been seeing people posting about it, some center right, some center left, mostly libertarians. And my question to this is, and I know many of them and I love them to death outside of their political beliefs, but where's the liberty in the First Amendment that you see playing out today? Somehow they want to always find a way to look at the violence. They want to deflect to the violence. But they want to forget about all the peaceful stuff. They want to forget about all the peaceful protests. They want to forget about the whole reason the protest is taking place. But I think there's this poison that seems to attack these folks when it comes to rights. And it's the whole reason folks are out here exercising their First Amendment right, and in some cases their Second Amendment right, to peaceful protest, bear arms and all that stuff. But I don't see them getting any backing from folks like the libertarians, some on the middle left have said some things, but for the most part, I don't see Rand Paul in that group out here talking about liberty. And I'm beginning to wonder if that liberty is as selective as it has always been. It seems to be playing out that way. It seems that if you support Black Lives Matter or some other liberally based or liberal-based organization, or let's just put it out there, a black organization, that word black becomes like kryptonite to people. It's poisonous. Got to find something to counteract that. It's happened throughout history. It's the whole reason people are out there now. The injustice. And it's systemic. Yeah, it is. And it starts with them subtleties. You know, we hear I'm not even going to call them dog whistles. They're loud and clear when you start talking about the suburban dream and how we don't want to let the low-income folks come in and we don't want to build low-income housing. Oh, man, this just came in here a little while ago. I don't know if it's breaking news, but it just came in a little while ago, at least on my feed. And this goes back to what I'm talking about with this anti-mask brigade that everybody wants to try and refute. 10 Tennessee lawmakers and legislative staffers have tested positive. Yep. It hit the state houses. It tested positive for the coronavirus this week. And this one was in Tennessee. I don't know. Don't get it. Don't get the need to so hard, to fight so hard to discredit the science, to avoid acknowledging what is actually happening. I will never understand the need for that. I don't get that. What's going on Twitter? Let's take a look here. Let's see what's happening. Oh yeah, this was one. So apparently ICE has a hotel. And if you're not familiar with what's going on here, ICE had to they were ordered to release all the kids that were being detained within these facilities, and COVID-19 is rampant in these detention facilities that we've all seemed to have forgotten about since after the 2018 election. Well, not all of us, but other things that, you know, the news cycles, they flow so fast. But yeah, apparently ICE was illegally detaining immigrant kids in hotels. In particular, and I can't play the video. I wanted to play the video for you, but it's not working for some reason. But they had a video with a bunch of attorneys that tried to get into this hotel, and as they were in this hotel searching for these kids, there were plainclothes officers, and I want to say they were probably border protection. They're not. They don't have name tags on, so you can't see who they are. But it was pretty heated. A lot of profanity and profane language in it. But they were forcibly thrusting these lawyers that were on the floor. They were throwing them off the floor, telling them that they have no right to see what was going on with the kids. So they moved them out of the facilities, but now they're being held and detained in hotels. I don't understand it. And just so we're clear on ICE, right? ICE was an organization that was recently created. It's not something that we've always had here. ICE was created because of it's an extension of the Patriot Act and Homeland Security, and it was created to stop terrorists and customs to search out bombs and packages and things like that from international terrorists and things. But we've conveniently, just like all other things, when we have, and this isn't just a Republican thing or a Trump thing, the Democrats voted in the House overwhelmingly to keep this Patriot Act thing going, right? So this lawyer goes up he wants to check on the kids, he wants to act on their behalf, and he wants to see how they're doing. And about, it was a group, I don't know how many, it was probably 4 or 5, I can't remember how many was in the video. You can find it. I think it was, I forgot which news organization was, Now This, I think it was. But there's a video of them I believe AOC has it on her Twitter feed, and they're detaining these kids in hotels and not allowing anybody on the floor, and they forcibly move these guys. So what the attorneys did was they went outside and they made a bunch of signs to put in front of this hotel to let the passersby know that they're detaining kids in there. If we have border protection already, and we have immigration already, why are we using ICE to do a job they weren't mandated to do? Let's just put it out there. That's not what their mandate was. Not to detain kids, not to enforce border immigration laws, but to seek out terrorists crossing the border. And I might be wrong on that. I mean, but from what I've read, that was their mandate. And speaking of terrorists, the federal courts had overturned the death penalty for the Boston Marathon bomber. Remember him and his brother? Johar Tsarnaev isn't going to be executed. Interesting. I don't know how you feel about that. Let me know in the chat. What do you think about this? Boston bomber is spared the death penalty. That just happened today. I haven't seen too much commentary on it. I'll have to look at it again. Have you seen the latest Nike ad? With all the various, it's like a split screen and it has all the athletes and supporting the movement, and it shows them there. They're all splits. I mean, it was just well done, just split screen, and it just shows like complete unity. And if it wasn't a sports commercial, I'd probably be in tears. It was well done. It was great. Kind of makes you think about things. I get all spiritual and stuff like that when I see that. Speaking of spiritual, if you're around on Sunday, we're going to be talking spiritual stuff, and I might give a little sermon about. I'm sure you're familiar with all the commercials about the Credit Karma, right? You seen those Credit Karma commercials? Well, I'm going to do a small sermon on something called Karma Credit. Having karma on credit. You're not going to want to miss that one. And we're going to talk about that. And it has something to do with a little bit of enabling people and the law of averages. And when you play around too much and what it does, eventually time catches up with you. Karma, if you will, bad karma. So that'll be on Sunday in the afternoon at some point. I'm assuming right around 3 o'clock. Depending, I'm a late sleeper, so depending on when I get up. You know, one of the things that I talk about a little bit when it comes to these social justice movements and the need to dispel the movement because you've been so indoctrinated and so culturally conditioned into believing that there's only one right way, and it's the 400-year way that we've always known. And the immediate need to defend everything against the movement and the need to throw up flags against the movement. There was never, and I only bring this up, and this doesn't, I bring this up because I see it all the time. Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, Sonny asked if I think they will they will close the baseball season again. Yeah, I think so. They just canceled the Brewer game. We talked about Florida the other day and what's going on down there, but they canceled. They're canceling baseball games all over the place, and I'm going to assume it has to do with traveling, and I'm going to also assume that this will happen with basketball. I think basketball starts up tonight, or started last night. I'm not familiar. I don't remember exactly, but I think that they're going to be shutting a lot of things down. I think coming with this COVID thing, coming into these winter months when the weather starts to change, and especially if the schools start opening up and they bring kids back to school, which is another thing. And I know I'm going off on a lot of things tonight, but we talk about kids in school. You know, when kids get sick, it just spreads like wildfire, and I can't stop thinking about this enough. Is why do you think that this particular coronavirus is not going to act like the others? Why do you think that kids aren't going to spread this thing? I mean, there's no scientific evidence to suggest that it won't. Kids are carriers, man. They just are. Their bodies are doing all kinds of stuff. They're still developing. They spread things. They bring it home. I used the chicken pox virus as an example the last time, and think about how crazy that spreads. And then the residual effects that happen after COVID. It's a new virus. It's a novel virus, so we don't even know what the residuals are going to be on this virus. But we do know so far that people are having lasting effects in their lungs, their kidneys, their heart. The blood's doing funny things. So one has to think that even if you have this virus, and I think about the chickenpox virus, if you've gotten it as a kid, you still have that virus. Is still in you. And as an adult, it can easily turn into shingles. And I've known people that have shingles, and it's a different experience. They say that stuff hurts, man. Like it's no joke. And of course, it's something that you can treat and get over. But this notion that kids aren't going to pass it on, or that they can't get sick, or that they can't be harmed by it, I just have a hard time. The science just doesn't lean that way. And I have a hard time falling into that camp. And this is the other reason that I think, if anything, if you don't want to slap on the minimal to help out anybody in your community, at least do it for your family and your kids especially. And I keep going back to thinking about the 155,000 as of today that aren't going to see their families because they just didn't know what was happening. And in most, what's going on in these southern states right now, and let's just face it, most of them weren't taking it seriously. Florida, highest total cases, three straight days. Don't know what the totals are today, but 3 straight days before today, new cases, world records, beating everybody out. And they're still opening schools and bars and still hanging out and all this kind of stuff. And at this point, this isn't because of this. This is just trying to appease certain people and trying to hold on to something. I don't know what exactly, because it certainly isn't going to hold on to anything with Trump. Yeah, it was good to have you in here tonight, Sonny. I appreciate it. I'm not going to be on much longer. I enjoyed you. I'm glad you hung out. Have a good one. Stay safe. Mask up. And be sure to hit the like button, subscribe, share, and all that good stuff. Appreciate it. Take care. But this social justice movement, there always has to be this need to discredit or find a way to go against it. And it's rooted in a cultural conditioning and a supremacy view and a nationalistic identity. And you may not know it. I mean, you may be guilty of it yourself. You know, but that's where the whole cultural conditioning comes in, is not knowing it, not knowing the harm it is, not recognizing the change and going along with the change, and understanding that you can't fix, or you can't expect a problem that was created, you know, in the 1400s, you know, and then later in the 1600s with the slave trade. You can't expect the people, you can't expect to create that problem and then it be a problem, and then the people are out here protesting, and you expect the protesters and everybody to fix that problem, right? So in order to fix that problem, the history of the problem has to be acknowledged first and understand it, and then you have to be able to get in there and help fix the problem. And then we turn into the protests, and what we're seeing right now is we're seeing a lot of it's a rainbow out there. Everybody now sees that. This generation today is not like even my generation, right? They have access to information. They can see it all in real time. They see it as it's happening. They weren't brought into a world where everybody was taught differently and everybody was told to stay away from people, to stay in the suburbs or stay in the projects and all this and that. If you go down that way, you know, it's horrible down there. You can't go there. And don't get me wrong, I'm not suggesting that there isn't high crime areas, but that's the point though, isn't it? Why are there high crime areas? Get to the root of it. Don't talk about the systems and the stuff that you don't like, or the groups that you don't like, and then because you don't know what the problem is, then jump on board with those who just want to retaliate against the problem. No, get involved, get proactive, help to fix the problem. Now here's the deal. You have the protests that are going on right now. Most of the people that you talk about want to dwell on the violence, but they want to steer away from what the protest is actually about, because it is too difficult to break the conditioning that you have all grown up with. All of us. We've all grown up with it. We were growing up to think that if you were black or a person of color, there was something different and something not right about you. But those people of color, we didn't create that problem, right? We didn't put ourselves in boxes. Do you really honestly think that people of color want to have something different than you do? The kids today can see that they all like the same things. They like the same music. They like the same hangouts. They like the same skate parks. I can remember I was a skateboarder, and I can remember cruising up and down the street. And I think at the time, man, there was a few Spanish or Latinx skateboarders, both male and female. I only knew of maybe 2 other black folks that skated besides myself. But that wasn't, you didn't see that. You didn't see a whole lot of that. That was the thrasher crowd, as we called it back then, with the heavy metal. But then I seen it evolve into something more, right? I started seeing the graffiti on the half pipes and the empty pools and stuff like that. I started seeing the tags. Then I started seeing it get more colorful. And now if you look out there, the skate parks are packed with all kinds of a rainbow out there. There's colors from all over. There's ethnicities from everywhere, right? So this group that's out there protesting now, if you look at it, it's colorful. It's not like the 60s. It's not this side and that side. But there's folks out here that have been conditioned to believe that that's still bad, right? Oh, don't let them protest. Don't let them get out there and as long as it's peaceful and all this kind of stuff. And I get all that. Believe me, I do. I come from a very, very diverse background. So I get that argument. And you're right. For the most part, they should be peaceful. But when you look at that, they escalate when peace just isn't working. When 100 years, 200 years, you knelt, you were un-American, you marched, get off my streets, you hollered from the rooftops, make it rain. Black lives matter, all lives matter. It doesn't stop. It's if whatever organization, and it goes from even those you disagree with, whether it be whether in throughout history, whether it be a Spanish organization, a Native American organization, a black organization, they will always found the antithesis to that organization and throw it in your face. And what that does, and sometimes unwittingly and unknowingly, in an attempt to use the All Lives Matter moniker in a good way, they want it to be inclusive. But what that tends to do when you create these clapbacks that we all see, is what that says to those that are out protesting the mistreatment of individuals. What that says to them is, you're telling them, in effect, when you say, somebody says I'll use it as an example. Somebody says Black Lives Matter, and you say all lives matter, or even blue lives matter. What that tells the people that are meaning well and are asking and crying out and are sick for the help, what you're saying to them is to basically shut up. And back in the day, it used to be shut up, N-word. That's what it was. That's what it is. And to alienate the group. I think back to the protests with AIM, the American Indian movement, and how they were isolated in that way. Black Lives Matter and the Civil Rights Movement, how they were isolated that way. I still see the same batons, the same riot gear from 60 years ago today. As if it worked. Well, they thought it worked then. They thought it worked. Because you know what would happen is they would do those things, the protests would stop, and life would go on for another year or so. And then something else would spark it up. But this time, they're not going home. Whoa! Oh, they're not going home this time. Now what are we doing, right? So, just like in colonial fashion, if you will, they have to come up with laws, right? As if we don't have enough of those on the books. But they start digging up laws that they probably haven't used, or stuff they haven't used in 60 years. And while people are out on the street, they come up with stuff like unlawful assembly, disorderly conduct when you're screaming from a park bench or something to that effect. You know where I'm coming from. Look, let me try and make that, and I don't speak for everybody. Like I said, we're not monoliths in any of this. But from my perspective, I would say this when it comes to trying to retaliate against everything. First, ask yourself, and it doesn't matter if it's a racial movement or racial injustice, social justice, or if it's just justice in general. Why do you feel the need to defend everything the opposite of that which you see? Ask yourself that question first. Why do you feel the need to go against the Black Lives Matter movement or the organization? Why do you need to put a label on it? You got to ask yourself, the minute those thoughts go into your brain, why is it that that thought is coming to your brain? First, it starts with cultural conditioning. We've been conditioned to believe that the things that we viewed as normal from the founding of this country automatically defaults us into believing that everything else is abnormal. So we create laws to make sure that the abnormal stays over there, you know, the inner city, and the normal stays over there, the suburban dream. And just to be clear, there's people living in every aspect of this. It's you know, there's not only is it just a racial divide, there's a class divide as well. The wealth gap, and those who choose to stay in the places that they are currently in. But I digress. Why do you feel the need, and this is the question, why do you feel the need, and this is something to look inwardly about, something to do some self-reflection. Why do you feel the need to defend a racist statement? And you know what I'm talking about. Or even a racially charged or biased statement. Ask yourself, why do you feel the need to defend that? Secondly, why do you feel disincluded when somebody says black, native, Hispanic? When people are calling attention to those things, when somebody says Black Lives Matter, and you say all lives matter, or blue lives matter, or anything else matters, not only does it say shut up, but what you're saying in effect is that no, you don't matter. This matters more. You have to, you are in effect making the divide further. Hey, what's up, Anthony? I see you. You make the divide go further. Because if you truly meant that all lives in effect matter, and they do, you wouldn't feel the need to have to even say it as a response to somebody saying Black Lives Matter. And I want you to pay attention to this, because when somebody says blue lives matter, the all lives matter people seem to disappear. So what is it really about at that point? It's that poison word that culturally conditioned you to believe that black is somehow abnormal, different, belongs over there. And that's where we get into this. So they invent laws and they start finding ways to keep people in their place, right? And nowadays it's starting to slip away. They're seeing a big rainbow out there. You're seeing your sons and daughters out there. You're seeing people in your family out there. Even those you disagree with, you're seeing out there. And I remember when the whole take a knee thing took place, and everybody was up in arms. Oh, it's disrespectful, this, that, and the third. And I said, at the time, I said, well, at least they're not destroying nothing. They're not, it didn't get violent. It's not violent. Why is that affecting you so much? And then the actual protests take place, the marching in the street, and then you get the agitators that just can't wait to show their faces, right? Then you start getting that element, and that's what happens. And here's the thing. Here's my suggestion on that. If you're going to be out at these protests, especially these, and I'm talking to anybody that's willing to listen here, organize them better. Get them organized. Don't give them the excuse. Don't give them the ammunition. Don't give them the ability to create an enemy out of you. Excuse me. Don't let them control your movement. And what I mean by that is organize these things better. if there's going to be a protest or there's going to be something to this effect, organize it and do it timely. I'm speaking more specifically to the Portland situation right now. And I'm talking about the situation where they're saying, well, we got to send in the troops because you're going to destroy these federal buildings, and you're going to destroy this and that and all this stuff, even though, it's not that serious, but that's what they're using to send out troops right now. You're destroying federal property. So now they got an excuse to send these troops out. And they can do it. They are doing it. So what you do is you organize, right? And when it starts to get dark, when it starts to get to where, because these agitators and these people that are there to destruct and destroy things, and there's agents in that group as well. Don't get it twisted. We know this. When time comes, it starts to get dark outside, and that you start to see the agitation, move the protest away from the area and leave the agitators there. You get what I'm saying? Control the narrative. Control what it is you're trying to accomplish. Well, we're getting close to the end here. I decided to do a Friday night freestyle. Calling it Freestyle Friday, where we can talk about anything. And I appreciate all of you that come out. But this stuff is getting serious, man. And these protests, they're largely peaceful. But even when they're not, I need you to consider why. I need you to really look at the root cause of all of it. And just get over this retaliatory effect. If you're retaliating against these movements, it's something you have to look at from within yourself. What is it that you don't like? Because it certainly isn't the protest, right? Because I see it happen when we see the Black Lives Matter infiltrate the sporting events. When we see the Black Lives Matter show up on your screens, and it's happening more and more. And then I hear people say, "Well, I'm sick of it. When is it going to end?" And this is an attitude of dismissal. It's one where you don't want to be inclusive, and you don't want inclusivity for those that are being oppressed by those very notions. This is nothing new. This has happened throughout history. What is new is that it has become more colorful. There are more people out there now. It's not just black people marching. It's everybody. And they are supporting those who have been traditionally and culturally and ethnically oppressed by racism, systemic racism, and cultural biases. And it's happening even more in our government. It didn't start with this administration, but they are most certainly using it to some very, very extreme effect. And on this Black Lives and all lives argument, of course, these protesters and Black Lives Matter and the Idle No More movements and all of the movements that come with people of color, La Raza, and all these movements do not say stay out. There's only one particular movement that says stay out. And I opened up my show today with what type of person says stay out. I opened up my show today with former KKK leader, Grand Dragon, from 1974 to 1978, David Duke, as he got banned from Twitter today. for violating their hate speech rules. Those are the groups that say, stay out. Join the party. People of color have been involved in every single aspect of American life since its beginning. And they're not going anywhere. You know, this doesn't mean you have to get and jump in bed with everybody, right? Doesn't mean you have to love and like everybody, but damn it, you gotta share it with them. With us. If you truly believed all lives matter, you wouldn't have to declare that, and it wouldn't bother you to see Black Lives Matter, because if Black Lives Matter truly meant that all lives matter, you'd be on board with that too. It wouldn't bother you. You wouldn't feel the need to throw up any other slogan that would in your heart and in your mind purposely to go against that particular movement at this time. It isn't necessary, but it does put you out there. It means you don't want inclusivity for all people. Nobody is saying that all lives don't matter. But right now, there has been too much unwarranted death, unnecessary death, and not just in the Black community, but in the Native community, in the Hispanic community. And I've seen it all. I've seen the graphs, and I've seen the little things they like to put up to tell me to shut up. I see all that stuff. I get it. People inbox me with the hate mail. They go on my page and they throw it at me just like I'm talking about. I get it. I see it. But it's disproportionate. So as much as you like to tout all this stuff, well, more of this folks get killed and more of that folks do this and there's more crime. Do you honestly believe? And I use this scenario. Let's talk about it for a minute. I use this scenario here. Last week, I think it was, Trump talked about, or he's been talking about it, I should say. It wasn't just last week. It's been a while. That all these folks are getting COVID because they're testing more, so there's going to be more COVID cases. There is a little bit of logic in that. But if that's the case, then the same logic would be used for policing communities, right? So, hey, what's up, Don? Good to see you, man. The same thing could be said about policing inner city communities, right? If there's more police, then there's going to be more crime, or there's going to be more arrests, or there's going to be more killing and more detainment. And so here's the thing. There is more policing in these communities, and those folks that are and we're talking about like this whole defund the police movement. This is scaring people, but I look back at it too, like, well, I'm not really worried about that so much because I don't live in an area that's over policed, right? So if my area isn't over policed, then why would I have to worry about the police having some of their budgets cut a little bit? Now, that's what I'm talking about with you guys. You guys that want to, you're railing against this defund the police movement, and they're not talking about, well, I can't speak for all of them. I mean, some people are saying get rid of the police altogether. I'm not one of those folks. But I think that in America, we've been culturally conditioned to believe that the capitalist society is great and money talks, right? So if you teach us that money talks and we say defund the police, you're listening now, ain't you? I mean, that's the point. You're listening now. And they're not talking about just taking money, they're talking about restructuring, right? It's a whole program of restructuring, changing the culture. This culture of they are bad and we are against them And by them, I mean all of us, the civilian population. And as I said, some areas are policed more than others. So when you say there's more crime in these areas, is that true, or is it that there's more policing in those areas? Let you in on a little secret. I still got family in those areas. I grew up in one of those areas that you guys like to call ghetto all the time, and you like to call us ghetto and all this kind of stuff. I grew up in those areas, and I can tell you there is some stuff going on there. But for the most part, most people keep to themselves. But anytime there's a condition, a sick condition in any area or in any aspect of life, you look for the source of that sickness and you kill it and you cure it in any way possible. That's how you do that. You don't find something to just say it's bad. You don't find something to just ignore it. You don't just say, well, if you ignore it, it'll go away. I wish that were true. Because I would have ignored my diabetes my whole life. I would have ignored that if that were true. So I need you folks out there to think about this for a minute. I need you to think about why you feel the need to defend things. Anything in general. Just anything. Look inwardly. Why do you feel the need to defend something? And when you figure that out and you see what it truly is, I want you to research, do your homework a little bit, and figure out why you feel that need and get to the root of it. Get past the cultural conditioning. Understand that sick people need help. And if you were the cause of that sickness, or you are a residual effect that is benefiting from that sickness, then you have to help cure that sickness. You can't deflect. You can't move away from it. None of these other counter movements they were never there before a person of color had started theirs. So you have to ask why. And we got a few minutes left here. I'm going to go through the scroll. As a matter of fact, here I am. Want to send a big shout out to all those out there that are listening. You're here on a Freestyle Friday where we all get to chat, talk it up, talk about the current events of the day. I want to give a big shout to Allie Henny in the Chicago area. She's a big she's outspoken. Talks about social justice issues, black issues, and the counterculture, otherwise known as whiteness, and the denial thereof. I'm one of her biggest fans. She tells it like it is. The Lincoln Project. Got to shout them out. The Lincoln Project has been, man, have they been putting the ads out, right? They got a new one out. I'm going to see if I can find this. They need your donations. If you're not familiar with the Lincoln Project were former Republicans that had these. They're never Trumpers, if you will. That's what they are. The Lincoln Project, and they're putting out ads now. And this is the question I have regarding those ads, right? The Lincoln Project is putting ads out, but why aren't the Democrats doing this? Like, what is the deal? What are they hiding from? Can somebody please leave in the comments where the Democrats are with these ads? The Lincoln Project is killing it. And it makes sense because Republicans have always been strong in that. Conservatives in general. And I can't play the video, but I can play the audio for you. And I'm gonna drag this out here and see if I can find it. But the Lincoln Project here, you got to hear this.
See if I can. The AIDS epidemic at its peak. When asked in a debate who he considered American heroes, Vice President Bush praised a young research doctor, Anthony Fauci.
I think of Dr. Fauci. He's a very fine research, top doctor at National Institute of Health, working hard doing something about research on this disease of AIDS.
He's an American hero, a kid from Brooklyn who grew up over his family's pharmacy. At 5'7", he was captain of his high school basketball team, a natural leader. Under 6 presidents, he's quietly worked to keep America safe. In a time when truth is under assault, he's always been straight with us.
So I can say we will see more cases and things will get worse than they are right now.
While President Trump lied.
It's going to disappear. One day it's like a miracle. It will disappear.
Now Donald Trump is attacking Dr. Fauci. Why? Because Trump failed America. So he does.
And that's what we were talking about earlier. You know, when I sat there and I looked at some of the things when Trump goes into these briefings in the evening, and I disagree with Fauci on this sometimes, but I get along with them. And the guy is in no place, none whatsoever. He's not a peer of Dr. Fauci by any means. Whether he agrees with him or not is ridiculous on his face. So I don't even entertain that anymore. What else is going on here? Oh, yeah. Democrats on the House Foreign Affairs Committee say they are extremely alarmed by reports of out of Brazil that the U.S. ambassador in that country framed trade negotiations as being beneficial to re-electing President Trump, and an allegation Democrats say would be a Hatch Act violation. Yes, you don't get to campaign on the public's dime. You can't use, politicians can't campaign for at least federally anyway, can't be using taxpayer money to be doing this stuff. The ambassador should not be over there making deals for personal gain. Oh yeah, yep. We talked about Tucker Carlson earlier. He's back. Fox News host Tucker Carlson lashed out at President Obama, talking about his eulogy. I'm not even going to mess with this. I don't even want to talk about it. Carlson ain't got nothing to say about a real president anyway, so we'll leave it at that. Folks, I appreciate you for listening. Be sure to like, subscribe, get on all my social media. Be sure to hit that button, that notification button, because I want you to see me whenever you can. Hit that Cash App for me. That's what keeps this show going. And that's at DJ Frosty Freeze. We appreciate it. Sunday, 3 p.m. It's Spiritual Sunday. Gonna put on the do a sermon on enabling. I want you to know I appreciate you all. If you don't agree, I don't mind. Leave your comments in there. We look at it all, or at least I try to anyway. I appreciate those who are on my personal page watching right now. We're going to be switching that off. Everybody on YouTube, I appreciate that. Also, a couple things here. As you can see here, if you want to advertise on the page, you can advertise right here. Just email your info to djfrostyfreeze@gmail.com or freezeframeradio@gmail.com. You can see it in the ticker up there. I'll leave this on for a second in case you haven't noticed it. But we want to have you, if you want to advertise, got some really good rates for you. We're going to be shifting this over to Mixcloud soon because we like to do music and we like to play music, and I've already got hit one of those muted copyright things on Facebook, so I want to get rid of that. Yeah. Well, I appreciate it, folks. I'm going to get off here. It's been a couple hours. I enjoyed this Friday with you. I'm going to try and do this as many Fridays as I can. I do have other things going on Fridays. But I will try to get on here on Fridays. I try to get on at 7, but we may be changing that. COVID's got us doing all kinds of things. In my other capacity, I got a lot of stuff going on. So I have to adjust my schedule for it. But it'll be roughly in the evenings or late afternoon, something like that. I appreciate all of you that came out to check it out. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, do all that good stuff. Send your money to the Cash App at $DJ Frosty Freeze. We want to thank you for listening. And until next time, peace.
Your girlfriend's favorite DJ, DJ Frosty Freeze.